So characteristics of resilient parents. And so these are parents who, when the research has looked at, what parents, when faced with a lot of stress and a lot of, caregiving fatigue, for example, of caring for children who have special needs, what are the characteristics of those parents who come out on top, who don't end up getting compassion fatigue or getting distressed? So, those who access social support. So I want you to think as we're going through this, because I want you to be applying this to yourself, and I will give you dedicated time to do it later. Think of yourself at each component. Do you do this? And if you don't, it doesn't mean, okay, fail, I don't have that. What it means is, can I think about how to get this? So think about who's in your context. Who are your friends? Who are your family members that are supportive? Do you have that parent-to-parent support, for example, like I showed? Or within a school setting, within a work setting, do I have that supervisory clinical support from others? Is there a counselor that I like or I can see? Often doing things like pleasurable activities, going to a hobby, and I know it's really hard to take the time to do, but it's so helpful to you and it will help your child. Do you like, Spanish cooking or something, and you can go once a week for an hour, or an interest, and do you have fun? Because when you look at those stages of compassion fatigue, the no fun zombie, is the way you end up when you don't have fun, when you're constantly giving. So you're giving out, and you're not getting back in. And so social support is a huge protective variable. Letting things go. So this is hard for many of us. I'll just use myself as an example. But resilient parents are able to let things go, so they don't take on everything. They're not responsible for everything. And so, for example, your life goal, I had many life goals before I had children, and I didn't attain all of those goals. And it often was a source of stress for me and, dissatisfaction. Like, gee, I would have liked to have maybe been the president of UBC or something one day, or maybe I could be an international rock star. Those are things I would like to be able to do. But I can't do this. I still feel personally that I've achieved in my career, but I also feel like I could have achieved and done so much more if I didn't have kids. Then I have them, and I had to adjust and adapt to what I was able to do. I took time off work for more years than I would have liked to have because I needed to be at home dealing with this child who was out of control and many people couldn't control. So resilient parents are able to let go of all that. Like, those are all these balloons I had. I'm going to let a couple of them go. It doesn't mean I'm going to let them all go. And maybe I'm going to change them a little bit. Maybe my priorities are going to be to have a happy family life and to, decrease some of my stress. And rather than traveling and working all around the world, because that's what I wanted to do, I've worked overseas in a couple of places. I wanted to keep doing that. I thought I would just take my kids, my family, and I would go there. In fact, I was offered a job in Qatar, heading up a school. Would have been a great job, great pay, great everything. And then I thought, I went to the interviews and everything, and I got offered the job. It was called the Shafala Center, which Shafala is like a caper, I think, and it opens up like a flower. And I think the Crown Prince of Qatar has a son with autism, or did at that time. So this was great for my, this was so great. And I thought, what am I going to do with my kids? And my son with ASD at that time was like 9. And I just thought, I cannot do it, because what is the school going to be like there? And how is he going to, fit in? And I gave it up, and I was really, really sad about that for a long time. But then I got over it, and did some other things, but I had to let go of that. So resilient parents are able to adapt. They pick their battles. So you can't fight with everybody about every possible thing, and you can't be on your kid. Similar to those of you working in the schools. I've seen EAs, for example, teachers working with a kid at lunchtime, making sure they eat the nutritional thing first, they have the sandwich, and then they have this, and mom's put in a tiny little granola. You can't have that yet. Wait till the end. And look what the rest of the kids are doing. They're all eating their chocolate bars, and they're like throwing out their sandwich, right? So pick your battles. Look at what are the expectations of normal parents? And thinking, is this something I can control? That's a really important question, because if you cannot control it, maybe somebody else can help you deal with it, but maybe you have to not fixate on that. Do I need to deal with it right now? So there's a bunch of stuff going on. Do I need to deal with it now? Can I let someone else deal with it? Can I take a break? That's something I've really learned to do when I'm getting overwhelmed, just like, rather than escalating myself, and especially with my own family, you know, my son, who's now 28 and very verbal and very bright, will often tell me how I am not using appropriate self-regulation strategies when I'm turning purple and yelling at him. He has also told me many times that that certificate I have in mindful self-compassion, I should just rip it up because I'm not practicing it. So, you know, take a break, practice some self-kindness, and stop ruminating. Stop thinking about things over and over and over. So I'm going to show you a little video clip that I think is quite fun. And it's of a parent who's learning to let things go. And in this little clip, her daughter is at home. She's been home for 3 days because of snow, or, you know, let's say COVID forced all the kids to be at home. And she is trying not to react or overreact to her daughter in the background. So many of you may be able to relate to this. I don't have a young child, so it was hard for me, but my colleagues who have young children all said they loved it. So here we go.
Let it go. Turn away and slam the door. I don't care what they're going to say.
Let it go.
Like a storm ranger. Cold never bothered me anyway. Can't get to me at all.
No school.
It's time to see what I can do. To test the wind and break through. No rules for me.
Let it go.
Let it go. Turn away.
This would be day 3.
I don't care.
School still out.
Going to
All day. Frozen. Elsa. What's the snowman name? Olaf. And what's the sister name that froze everybody up from the beginning? Elsa. What's the other one name? Anna.
Like a storm.
If I ever could choke some cartoon characters, it'll be them.
And Kristoff and the
Kristoff, all them. I'd kill them if I could.
Please don't kill Elsa.
Okay, so, you know, that particular movie I haven't had the pleasure or displeasure of watching ever, but my vice principal actually has 2 young children. She's seen it many, many times, and you know, can relate to that. But one thing I really like about it is not just there's this song "Let It Go," which potentially in that show is about letting things go, but Mom is trying so hard to not, you know, flip out about her daughter continuing to sing all this. She's controlling herself, but then she says things about like killing all these characters. And of course, you know, her child hears her. So it's just very, very real, I think, about what it's like sometimes and what it's like to parent and how we're not perfect, but we're trying. So one of the aspects of resilient parents, and we're going to spend much more time on this this afternoon, is practicing self-care. And I know that's things that people hear. I often heard this, oh, look after yourself. And I would be like, yeah, well, I don't have time to look after myself. I'm looking after everybody else here. I don't have time for that. But the analogy of the oxygen mask in the plane is a very, very relevant one, because what happens when you're in a plane and it loses pressure or it loses oxygen? They tell you if you're with a child or somebody who's, you know, incapable of putting on their own mask, put yours on first. Because if you don't have any oxygen on and you're fiddling around over here helping your child, what's going to happen to you? You die out. You know, maybe they're breathing, or maybe you haven't even got it on completely because you've lost oxygen before you finish putting it on. So you have to put your mask on first. And that sounds really selfish, right? I always thought, I don't want to be selfish. I'm so caring. I'm so wonderful as a mother. I want to be, at least. But if I am draining myself of all oxygen and all energy and everything positive, I am not going to be able to put that mask on. So a quote here, I have come to believe that caring for myself is not self-indulgent, Caring for myself is an act of survival. And it's also an act of compassion and support for your child because you are making yourself stronger. So resilient parents do this. Either they already knew how to do it or they learned how to do it. Another research-supported finding, and there's more and more research on this, is being self-aware. So being aware of what's going on for you, what's happening in your environment, what's happening in your context. So all those contexts I have had you look at that you maybe haven't looked at very carefully, and being aware of it. And then when you're aware, you start by being aware, and then you're able to do something about it. Because if you're just not aware, if you're feeling nauseous and have headaches, but you're not sure where that's coming from, you're not able to engage in it. So mindfulness, another word for mindfulness is self-awareness. That's all it is. It's not some fancy, magical, mystical thing, although, you know, some people think that's the case. It's being aware, and you can learn how to do that. But what we know from the research is for those individuals who cope better, anybody, but there's been research done on families who have children with disabilities, that those who use self-care, you know, they turn out better than those who don't. But those who use self-care along with mindfulness practice or self-awareness training, it doubles the impact, doubles the benefit. So they do twice as well. And it doesn't surprise me because you become aware of what your needs are, and then you can either preventatively do something about it or reactively do something. So self-aware means being aware of all kinds of things, your context and who's there, but also what are your patterns? What are your triggers? What are your rabbit holes? So, you know, more and more I try to become aware of this, and then of course I have my children who like to point it out and remind me that when this happens, when this kind of thing happens, I think this, I start to feel like this, and here's how I behave. And often we're not aware of that. But when you get some training in this, in mindfulness, let's say, it teaches you how to do that. And I'm going to go through some exercises about that this afternoon with you. So, and in fact, even it can go the other way around. Like you start to think about, oh, you know, I'm thinking this, so I'm thinking people are going to be, you know, not liking this presentation today because they couldn't see the video at the beginning. And so I'm feeling like really sad about that and irritated. And so now I'm going to just tell Deborah, I'm done with this. You've got to continue. I can't handle it anymore. Well, that would be like kind of a dumb way to react, right? That's very reactive. So I've now learned that even though I'm starting to stress about it and starting to feel, I can feel like my shoulders are coming up like this, like sometimes they're like up here at my ears. You know, by the end of the day, they're like this. It's like, okay, they're up here. I'm going to move them down. So what was making them get up there? It was my thinking of this, thinking everyone's going to be really mad now, and they're going to hate it, and they're going to write bad stuff about me. They are probably not. Even if one or two does, that's them. And try to regulate my emotions down and not go down that rabbit hole where I end up fleeing the room. And you also become aware of when do you need self-care, you know? I'm starting to feel like this. Maybe I need to go and have a massage. Maybe I need to take a break and take a sick day. You know, when I worked in a treatment center, we actually had mental health days. We had sick days for being physically ill, and we had mental health days that we took. And in fact, our supervisor would sometimes say, you know what, I think it would be really helpful for you to take a mental health day. It was a healthy thing to be asked to do. Learn to identify and regulate your emotions because you cannot regulate emotions. And those of us who work with kids, we do this with kids, right? You can't just say, Johnny, calm down, use your strategies. If Johnny can't identify how he's feeling at the time, it's not going to work. That's going to fail. You have to start by teaching Johnny how to be aware of what's going on in his body and in his mind and in his emotions before he can ever have any chance of regulating. So you have to do it too. And that ability to identify and focus on positive aspects of your life, of your child, and of your experiences. Really, really important. And in mindfulness and self-awareness, you do that because let's face it, everything is not terrible, ever. I mean, you know, maybe I shouldn't say that. In some case, for somebody, maybe everything's terrible. But even if things are very terrible, and I actually just had something come to mind. My family spent a lot of time in Mexico, and both of my kids have spent time, working on various volunteer places that we're involved with. And there is this mission down there that goes and serves pizza and cookies to poor children. And so my boys, said they would participate, and one of them had to do it for something in grade 10, a volunteer. So they went there, and they're like, yeah, we can serve pizza and we can serve cookies. And there's these, little children there and their families who have. And my younger son came back and said this to me. He's like, Mom, those kids have nothing. Like, this was his impression, being, fairly entitled kid from Canada. They have nothing. Like, you should see what they live in. Like, it's not even a real house. And their clothes are, like, terrible. And most of them aren't even wearing shoes. And the parents, like, they look really old, Mom. I remember him saying this, like, I think you're pretty old, but you don't look that old. These parents look really, really old. And they're, like, younger than you, if you can believe it, right? But then what he said was, which was really saying, is we gave them one piece of he goes, it wasn't even great pizza. It was like pepperoni and cheese and one cookie. And they were so, so thrilled by that. So even in that circumstance, they didn't have running water either there. We actually, our family ended up helping to donate towards giving them water in their facility. But even without that, this piece of pizza and cookie that we would just be, yeah, whatever. In fact, I don't really like that pizza. It's not thin crust. It's not got, mushrooms on it, which I really like. They were able to see that and focus on it, and those kids were doing really well in so many ways. So you can usually always find something positive that you can focus on. So now what I'd like you to do is revisit. There it is, good. Revisit that chart that you did earlier on where you identified your stressors. And on that chart, you've identified them. Now go through and think of all those things I've covered, which I've covered a lot of things. What are characteristics in each of those categories, and there's many more obviously, where you have protectors? So either characteristics of, say, yourself or your child or your family or your school, etc., or things that you do or could do that are protective. And just take a few minutes to fill that in. And maybe starting with, for the sake of this, what you currently have that's protective, and then even anything that you're considering adding or doing differently. So, for example, your own personal characteristic that may be that you take on everything right now and you do everything. And maybe you're considering, delegating a couple of things. Letting the partner or the husband or your oldest child or something make dinner one night a week. That would be a possible protective variable. So just spending a few minutes doing that on your own and really applying it to yourself. You can also talk to someone about it. If you were here in the room, I'd say chat. You can draw something, color something, stick a picture of something on there. And when we come back, we will move into strategies of self-care and then mindful self-compassion.